Welcome to Sound the Horne Sports Show. I'm so excited to host this groundbreaking program that will broaden the Jackson sports scene's awareness regionally and nationally. My goal is to highlight sports in Jackson, the state of Mississippi, and nationally by utilizing my 25 years of Division I athletic administration knowledge, and my guests will be experienced leaders in sports. The guests on the show will share a behind-the-scenes, unique, and informative glance of the world of sports. Please join me every Monday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on WeBelieveDigital.com. Welcome to the Sound the Horne Sports Show. I'm so glad to have our guest with us today. I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Scotty Rogers, Director of Communications with the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Scotty, how you doing today?
Doing well, D. Horne. Glad to be here.
Thanks so much for accepting this invitation. Our format kind of goes, we always like to try and let our guests know a little bit about the hometowns and where our guests are from. So if you would, go ahead and share a little bit about your hometown, high school, and whatever you'd like to tell us about Atmore, Alabama.
I am a proud resident and native of Atmore, Alabama. For those that don't know, Atmore is a little small town in Escambia County, about a little over 50 miles north of Mobile, in the southwest side of the state. I was born and raised there. I tell people all the time I grew up in a I call it an all-American household. It was my mom, my dad, Aaron and Ursel. I had two brothers and two sisters that I grew up with, and I have another brother as well. We lived in modest means, but it was a great upbringing. We may not have everything we wanted, but we had everything we needed, and it was just a fun time. Learned a lot as I grew up, and went to Escambia County High School, and so go Blue Devils. Actually was just home back in the fall for my 30th high school reunion. I can't believe I'm that old, but it's been it's a wonderful time there. Some great memories, from elementary school to middle school to high school there, and I look forward every time I get a chance to go back.
Well, you mentioned high school. If you would tell us a little bit about some of the activities you were involved with in high school.
My athletic career, which wasn't very detailed or great, pretty much ended in high school with junior varsity baseball. But my unique history in my freshman year, we actually lost the state. I was trying out for the baseball team. I had played baseball since youth. Wasn't a great player, but, I had a little skill. Didn't make the varsity team. It was on junior varsity. My freshman year, we actually lost the state championship. That year, a kid pitched 16 straight innings in 2 games and ended up beating us in the state championship, and came back next year, tried out again my sophomore year. But we had a very talented team, and pretty much came in day one of practice saying that we were going to win a state championship, and that's what we ended up doing. So I was fortunate enough to be involved with that team, and got a ring as being a manager, and helped out with the team. It's a lot of great memories from that. That's going all the way back to 1989. One of the few state championships that my high school has won. I got to actually see the other one in recent history, or most recent history, which I was going all the way back in 1983. I was 10 years old, and we won the state championship in football. But my biggest thing in high school, outside of playing baseball, was I was in the band. I was, a lot of people don't know that. They might have seen some stuff, but I was a big band guy. I played drums. Both my older brothers that grew up in my hometown played drums. So for 2+ years, I was percussion section leader. So being in the band took up a lot of my life and time, whether at school, after school, going to band camp, going to some things. And even when I left high school, I thought maybe I might even pursue music and percussion, being a percussion instructor. Beyond, maybe that might have been my calling in life. But between that and then my senior year of high school, I joined the student paper. We call it ESCO High. And it was a unique experience because I really wasn't the world's writing. I never thought that would be my thing, but I got on the newspaper staff, And within the first 6 weeks, I was made co-sports editor with a junior, and we went on that year and won the best paper in the state in our division, overall for our paper. And really, it was that time, that fall of my senior year, and then that translated into me in the spring of my senior year, started to work at my hometown paper, the Atmore Advanced Writing Sports. And really, that's where my career in communications, journalism, PR, all of that side really kind of started from there. But it was really a happenstance. To be really honest with you, I wanted to get on the student paper because I like to be able to check myself out of school, because when you're on the paper, because you covered events, you could check yourself out of school. So, and, I needed, so I wanted a class that kind of, I was fortunate enough to be done well in school. I finished top 10 in my class academically. So by the time my senior year, I wanted to quote unquote cruise a little bit. So this was a great opportunity, but it turned out to be the start of what has now become my life and career.
Well, I've known you for a while, and that's the first time that I heard how you got to that point. But it's amazing how sometimes some people, when things don't happen their way, they get stuck. But it seems like you just took one roadblock and decided to take a detour and chart your own path. And I can see the passion that you have now, but even more after talking with you in this interview, I can see why you have that passion, because I've seen you work, I see what you do, and not everybody can work in media relations and strategic communications like you do.
No.
So you have to have that background and that intestinal fortitude, because we as interviewees sometimes aren't the best people to talk to.
That is for sure. I've definitely had to evolve into this role of being when I first got into it, and I thought it was going to be, going to be a sports journalist. I went to school as a journalism major at Alabama, and I thought that was the path that I was going to take. But some circumstances fell my way through my advisor, and opportunity was presented to start working in the athletic communications office at Alabama, which was my start of my sophomore year, which was the fall of 1992. And anybody knows anything about college football in 1992, it was a pretty historic and unique year, especially at the University of Alabama, when and we can get into what that story is and what happened. Most people know the story, but they might need to be reminded. So I've always been a person that I felt like the opportunities come my way. I may not have it a part of the plan, but as I see them, I try to interpret them, try to see where that might take me, and take that and what's going on in front of me and use that as the new plan going forward, and just kind of ride the wave, ride the wave of life, ride the wave of opportunities and situations that's put in front of me, and maybe not try to overthink it, but by the same token, be a little bit strategic in what I do, and hopefully, work for the best. Hard work doesn't change no matter what you do. So I grew up in the house knowing that hard work is something that you had to do, whether you were working with your hands or you're working with your brain or whatever you were doing, you had to work hard. So I've taken that from my humble upbringings in Atmore and just tried to use that all day, every day with what I do and all the places I've been fortunate enough to work at.
Well, you and I have a good friend by the name of Ron Middleton. That's from Atmore, Alabama. Ron has done a great job. Started Auburn and had a great NFL career as a player, and is doing a great job now in the NFL. I think he's still with the New York Jets now. Who are some of the other people from Atmore, Alabama that have gone on, like yourself and Ron, to do some great things?
It's a unique situation with Ron. I actually saw him. He was on that '83 state championship team that won for us back then. Some names that people might know or might remember: Don Mcneal, who played in the '70s for the Miami Dolphins, defensive back. Was on some of those great teams in the in the 70s. A name that doesn't get as associated with Atmore, because I believe he claims Atlanta more than Atmore, but Evander Holyfield was born in Atmore. And actually my senior year of high school, we did a parade and had a whole big to do when he won. That was 91, 92 when he won the heavyweight title. He came back to town and we had a whole big parade for him. Another name that people have heard, he's made a career more in coaching, maybe as a player, but some people know him as a player, especially in SWAC, was Woody Mccorvey. Woody was a quarterback at Alabama State, went on to be coach at a number of different schools, Alabama, Tennessee, and has now been a number of years at Clemson with Dabo Swinney. People probably don't know, don't realize, Dabo and Woody and we were all at Alabama at the same time. And Woody was Dabo's position coach at Alabama when Dabo was a walk-on wide receiver. So, and then, went on to be offensive coordinator, and went on to other places from that. But it was that connection that they made at Alabama. Actually, Dabo graduated a year before I did. I didn't know him. I knew of him. I mean, I know him now because I've interacted with him in my role, especially here with the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. But, it's funny how those connections fall into place. Woody's dad was my middle school principal. So in his house that he grew up, Woody is older than me, but his family house, my family house, was down the street and around the corner from each other in Atmore. So it's all those kind of unique tie-ins, but those are a few names that people may know of athletes who were born in my hometown.
Well, one thing that you talked about, and I always try and share, particularly with the young people that might be tuning in, relationships are key. And you just went through a couple of relationships on how you never know when they will come to fruition. And sometimes we rush and hope that they can happen immediately, but they happen at the right time. And like I said, you and I have known each other for a while, and I've enjoyed the relationship that we've had, and we've both been able to assist each other through our careers, and I think that's the great thing about sports. Sports pulls together unique individuals to do extraordinary things. And you take a look at Dabo and Willie, and who would have known when they were working together at Alabama that they worked together to win the national championship.
Absolutely. And you talked about, a coach that was at an established point, and you talking about at the time somebody who was a walk-on wide receiver. And now he's going on to lead one of the great programs that is currently going on in college athletics. And I know they'll be back in the national picture, competing for national championships as they have been in the last handful plus years. It was those relationships, frankly, at Alabama that really sparked my career. I started Alabama in the fall of 92 as a 19-year-old student assistant. Well, that was the first year of the SEC championship game in Birmingham. People may forget the first two championship games were in Birmingham before we moved to Atlanta. That was a game where, Langham had the interception of Shane Matthews. I was at the press box in that game, freezing. That was one of the coldest football games I had been to at that time. It was cold in Birmingham that December day. And, that game changed college football in a lot of ways, because then Alabama went on to play Miami in the national championship in the Sugar Bowl. With Miami being the number one team, Gino Torretta was the Heisman Trophy winner. Alabama, wasn't known for a great offense, which they're known for now, but they had probably one of the best defenses that ever played college football. 10 of the 11 guys on that starting defense got drafted in the NFL, and I believe all 11 played, plus others played in the league. So, and that's why they went down to Miami and did what they did and shutting down Miami, and that was a historic game. George Teague walking down the wide receiver from Miami, and it was that was. I tell people all the time, January 1st, 1993 is the day I know when I wanted to work in sports, because I got to spend the last 8 minutes of the that game on the sidelines at the Superdome. you see that you know the iconic visual of Gene Stallings on the shoulders. Well, in one version of that video, in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen for about, I don't know, seconds, you could see my glasses and see my face, and I'm looking up at the Jumbotron at the Superdome at myself, and I just remember, like, I really don't understand all of this working in college sports, but I think this is what I want to do. And it was really from that moment on that it really kind of started resonating with me that this would be something that I could do. And I just used my time at Alabama. I was able to spend 3 years as a student assistant in the athletic communications office. And, you know, I soaked up all the knowledge I could. I tried to work as many events as I could. And I was fortunate enough my senior year to be involved with the women's soccer program when they brought that back as a varsity sport. I got some great exposure that to a sport I didn't even really know and understand, but I learned it. And it really put me in position to establish myself and put me in position to, you know, blossom and grow from there for my first opportunity that happened to be at the Southeastern Conference office. It's when I met you.
Yep. Well, Scotty, what we're going to do, we're going to end this first quarter. We're going to put a pin in your experience at the Southeastern Conference office and also what got you to Alabama. We're going to go ahead and go to a break so we can give some time for our sponsors to be recognized.
Something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the We Believe Global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at webelieve.global.
Welcome back to the second quarter with Mr. Scotty Rogers, Director of Communications with the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Scotty was talking a little bit about his experiences in Alabama, but one question I wanted to ask in this quarter was, were you always an Alabama fan?
I was. You know, some of the phrase that people will say in the state, when you're born in the state of Alabama, you got to come out, pick one, Alabama or Auburn. And I just became an Alabama fan. I really don't know why in particular. There was nothing, you know, Alabama about my family or background. It's just a school that I kind of picked and just always became a fan. I remember watching Iron Bowls growing up. And when I got to high school and started thinking about schools, you know, I had an opportunity when we won our paper in the state. It was best paper in the state in our division. The conference was in Tuscaloosa. So that was first time I got a chance to go back to campus. And then after my senior year, I got selected to be involved then it was called the Minority Journalism Workshop. It was basically a 2-week journalism camp where you went to campus and you spent 2 weeks on campus staying in the dorm, and you went through all these exercises, and the end goal is that you would produce a small tabloid newspaper. The group, you would learn basics, write stories, design, and things like that. And I was fortunate enough to write the story that I wrote, end up winning best story of the workshop. And honestly, from that, I think it was 3 weeks after I got done with the camp, I went back to Alabama for my freshman orientation. When I was going to freshman orientation, my major was going to be, I was going to major in computer science and minor in math. And then when I got there, I ended up changing, after I went through the journalism workshop and then I went back, I ended up, before I officially declared what my major was going to be. When I went back, I decided I was going to major in journalism and minor in computer science. Also minored in history, but it was that journalism workshop and that 2-week experience on campus that really brought it home to me, because that was probably the first time I had personal recognition that I could actually do something and write at a level that people would acknowledge it. And it really kind of changed my course of life, really.
Well, yesterday when we were talking with Jamil Northcutt on our last episode, and he just talked about when he went to school, he wanted to go into the medical field. And he and I had a conversation, and I said, man, what do you really want to do? And sports is what he really wanted to do, and he kind of changed his perspective and ended up working at the Southeastern Conference like you did as well as an intern, and went on to work in the NFL and back into the NCAA. But I think that those things that you have to do is find out where your passion truly lies. And when you do that, then finding opportunities won't be that hard because you're doing what you like. And it sounds like you found that out in high school, and you've been doing what you like ever since you were in the 10th grade in high school, sounds like.
Well, I'm a frustrated athlete who didn't get any height, didn't get any skills, but just love being around sports. And you're right. I knew that my playing time was not going to, what little playing time I did have didn't last very long. So if I wanted to be around sports, I had to find a different avenue to be around it in a major way. And from my time in Alabama and then being fortunate enough to get the internship in media relations at the Southeastern Conference office in Birmingham, it really kind of solidified, okay, now I'm out in the world. I've got a degree. I got this job, which I really didn't know what I was doing, but I had a good foundation from the great folks at Alabama, and I just used that to listen and learn and try to look around. I tried to look around, as I still do. I may not know the answer to everything, but I see what other people doing. Maybe I can take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and throw my own thoughts and ideas into it and bring it into my own way. And that's really what I did in the early stages of the SEC. When I first got there, and I was fortunate enough that it paid off.
Well, at the time that you were at Alabama, not only with football, there were just some great athletes that were there. If you would, just kind of share some of the athletes that you covered during your time as a student.
Well, I did write for the student paper, the Crimson White, for one semester, my freshman year. And one of the first people I remember interviewing was Dee Dee Foster, the All-American gymnast. And, I was intimidated on a bunch of fronts trying to interview her. I mean, she was a, world-class athlete, stunning. I'm a freshman. She's a junior or senior at the time. It was kind of hard to get my focus right when I'm sitting there trying to do an interview. But, at the time I got to Alabama, Alabama had an interesting run. I was there right in the Wimp Sanderson to David Hobbs, and they had a lot of great players. Latrell Sprewell, a Jackson native, James Hollywood Robinson, was on Roy Rogers, Jason Caffey. There were some great players that came through in that time. And that also during the time that I was at Alabama, the women's basketball team had probably its biggest run and experience. In 94, made it to the Final Four, and their only Final Four. In 95, I actually worked in the longest game in NCAA Division I women's basketball history. It was a second-round game in Tuscaloosa. Alabama and Duke went 4 overtimes, and I actually was working stats for that game, backup stats for that game. And it was an interesting time. And we had great athletes in other sports as well, but those are just a few in particular that jumps out to me.
I think during that time when you were there, that was really more of a really true balanced Alabama sports program. I'm pretty sure at that time too, baseball was doing pretty good. It was pretty balanced, and I know that you had more than ample time to reach out and work with those different athletes. And one thing I would like for you to kind of share, how did that time as an intern at Alabama prepare you for your career?
It really gave me the foundation of how an athletic department work. You know, Even as I've gone on as a graduate and a fan, when I talk about Alabama, I don't just athletics. I talk about Alabama athletics. I don't just talk about Alabama football. Because some of what those student athletes are doing, I was at Alabama before they had the softball program, and now obviously the softball program is one of the gymnastics program at the time I was there. I mentioned that a little bit. They were winning national champions, but swimming, tennis, golf, just all of the programs there were so successful. And when you in an athletic department, as I know you have been, you learn so many different aspects about how an athletic department works. You understand that there are certain programs that get the attention. Certain programs generate a percentage or a large percentage of the revenue, but that's just really one piece of how an athletic department works in all the different areas. That was really the foundational thing. I was learning about communication, but I was also learning about everything, from the business side of it to the operations side to the financial side, athletic training, marketing, you name it, because an athletic department has so many different areas to it than just the ones that people think about sometimes, which is coaching and maybe money. And there's a whole lot more that goes along with it. And I just learned a lot about it, and I was able to expand on that knowledge when I got to the SEC, because at the time they had 12 schools. So I was able to really learn as I got to go to other campuses and learn a little bit about how they operate on different campuses, and take my Alabama experience and learn how the broader college athletics, obviously within the SEC, but really at the time I was learning about how the broader college athletics work, learning differences from campus to campus, because everybody does it a little differently.
Well, I think you touched on a great point, and I think in the dialogues that we have, particularly when it comes to collegiate athletics, I always want people to realize that, football is going to be in the South the anchor for most programs, and I don't care what that's Division I, Division II, Division III. But there are so many other unsung heroes that work in athletics. Even when you take a look at, particularly with this pandemic that came up, and return to play is so important, the athletic trainers and the doctors and the training staff that you work with, those are just as key. But even larger than that are your compliance officers and your student academic support staffs, because they are truly unsung and they are not seen. But if one or two of those units tell you that they're not ready to play, I don't care if the equipment is ready. I don't care if you got the bus gassed up. If they say you can't play, you can't play. So it's a lot that goes on at every level to make sure that a program could be successful. And I'm glad you shared what you learned. And I would encourage any other young aspiring athletic administrator, don't get pigeonholed. Master your job, but also to know what goes on around you, because you never know when you might be called in to pitch in. And I'm pretty sure there were times that you've been able to do that. And one that I want to share, because I noticed this and watched this when you were with the conference office, you and Roy Kramer had a real good working relationship. Tell me a little bit about Roy Kramer and your relationship.
I mean, there's a lot of great people that's worked in college athletics, that has worked and do work and will work. But for me, Roy Kramer is kind of my GOAT. He was commissioner of the SEC. He obviously did some revolutionary things. And he took a chance on a kid that he didn't have to. One of the things that, D. Horne, you may not know, I was just the second African-American male to have a job in media relations in a full-time capacity in the history of the SEC. That's conference office and schools. For males, not talking about African-American females. I didn't know that at the time. I know when I was dealing with folks at the schools, there were not a lot of people that looked like me. But when I got there as an intern, and 9 months into my internship, Commissioner Kramer, which is a hell of a story, how I got promoted, he offered me a full-time job, and I took it and went from there. It was literally like that, and that what I thought might be a 1-year deal turned into a 5-year experience at the SEC office. And that foundation set me up for everything that I've done athletically. And he got to trust me in a way that he gave me opportunities that this small town kid, I got a chance to fly around with him, go to games. I got a chance to go in his office and ask him questions and learn from him. Even to this day, he still is connected. I try to talk to him on a somewhat regular basis to keep in touch. He's in his 90s now, and still got some of that sharpness, and still remember some of the great stories that we shared back through those times that I was with them. So he was a visionary. He's a legend, and he's gonna always be someone that when you look back at pivotal moments and opportunities in college athletics, his name has to be in the conversation with the things that he did.
Well, you brought it up, and if people haven't seen it, they need to go watch the little brief documentary about the SEC championship game and his vision.
Absolutely.
And also, he said that if Florida would have won, he didn't know what he was going to do the next day, because it was set on really making sure that you can get the best team into the national championship picture. And that, on paper and by record, it was Alabama, but just for the vision that he had, being the first conference to have a conference playoff, to really set up the divisions.
Absolutely.
As an administrator at Ole Miss, I had a chance to sit in the room when they were discussing the CBS contract. That blew my mind. But he was one of the ones that was really instrumental in negotiating and working with the major networks to make sure that you can leverage and get your just due for your conference. Now, not only what he did was revolutionary for the conference, but it became a springboard for other conferences to match. And I've had a chance to interact with him, and I agree with you. He's very personable. He's probably one of the most competitive people you ever want to see. Not that he's going to do anything that's going to be demonstrative, but he doesn't like losing. He's a winner. Yeah. He's a winner in a positive way. And I was always just pleased to have an opportunity to communicate with him. I hadn't had a chance to talk with him in a while, but the last conversation that we had was it was great. And, as we get ready to go ahead and end up this second quarter, give me in about 30 seconds, maybe the most memorable time that you had with him.
A quick story that we always laugh about is that I believe it was 96, and we went out to a regional in Nacogdoches, Texas. Stephen F. Austin was hosting, and I was fortunate enough to fly out with him on the charter flight. And the plan was for me to stay and then fly back commercial. But the funny part of the story, without going into great details because it's hard to put it in 30 seconds, I quickly let him know that I would prefer to have gotten on the plane and go back with him. And so that's what ended up happening. But, he just gave me so many opportunities to do so many different things. I got to go out of the country for the first time while I was there. I got to go to Japan for 10 days and help lead an all-star team, a men's basketball player. So much happened in my time there. So many great memories, and we can get in that in the third quarter.
All right. Well, we're with Scotty Rogers, and we're going to close this second quarter out, and we're going to give our sponsors an opportunity to share their message.
SGECOVIDsolutions.com is paving the way forward for a safer city government delivering cutting-edge biosecurity and biosafety protocols developed internationally by top virologists and scientists using an all-natural cleaning solution, killing COVID-19 on contact like no other product on the international market. For more information, please call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at SGECOVIDsolutions.com. Let SGECOVIDsolutions.com provide innovative rapid facilities testing and world-class state-of-the-art biorisk safety protocols for all of your coronavirus needs. Call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at SGECOVIDsolutions.com.
Welcome back to the third quarter with Scottie Rogers, Director of Communication with the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, and it's been great talking about what got you to the SEC. I know a lot about this organization, but I think a lot of people really need to embrace it, and you and I have talked about how administrators need to be a lot more engaged with media relations, COSIDA, and having a good understanding of the support and also the benefit this organization offers. So if you would, tell us a little bit about what COSIDA is and what its mission is.
Well, COSIDA is, and I got involved with this from the moment I got to the SEC and had my first full-time job. You know, COSIDA, which is the acronym for College Sports Information Directors of America, is the professional organization for those who work in athletic communications in college athletics, and it's an organization for not only for communications professionals, but also for the emerging group that we spend so much time working with now as creatives. You know, all those that are on the digital, social, photography, video creation side. We're all content creators, and the organization is there to provide an opportunity for folks to get with like-minded individuals who are doing similar things in their career. And it's a place of networking. It's a place of learning. It's a place of recognizing each other for the accomplishments that you make. So it's an organization that has grown over the many years that I've been involved with it, and it creates an opportunity for folks to grow themselves and look at the profession from a broader sense, because a lot of times you get caught up working at your school, in your conference, in your region, at your division, and you don't think about what's beyond that. College athletics is a very vast area. When you talk about Division 1, 2, and 3, NAIA, junior college, our friends in Canada as well, it's an organization that really tries to touch on all the different aspects and the different things that individuals deal with as far as being in the organization. And other things that we do as a part of that is trying to celebrate the student athlete. And we do that through a number of different ways, most notably the Academic All-America, Academic All-District, Academic All-America program that celebrates student athletes and their accomplishments on and off the field. And through that organization, we recognize them on the district level, and then ultimately recognize them on the national level as well as Academic All-Americans. But again, it's also an opportunity where we can celebrate ourselves too, and work with other like groups that we deal with in the college athletic space, whether it's the marketing or licensing or development. You know, those of us that sit in the quote unquote external side of the house. And it's been an organization that I've been engaged with in a number of different ways. And right now, you know, I stay busy with the organization with I'm one of the co-creators of our Racial and Social Justice Initiative, vice chair of our Diversity and Inclusion Committee. I'm also on our Division I cabinet and our Special Awards Committee. So between all those different avenues, you know, I feel like I contribute to the organization in a number of different ways to try to celebrate our legends, celebrate the people that's made a difference, but also trying to move the organization forward, because diversity, equity, and inclusion is such a key piece to what we need to be as an organization. As someone who's been a part of the organization as an underrepresented minority, we still got a long way to go. We've made some strides, but we got a long way to go. And, you the light has been shined on it in a way that avenues are open, conversations are open, and we made some strides already in the last couple 3 years, but we're looking to make even more as we move forward in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years.
Well, you made mention of your efforts with diversity and inclusion, and you recently completed your certification at the University of South Florida regarding diversity and inclusion. If you would, maybe just share a few takeaways from that you've been able to maybe not only add to COSIDO, but also add to your repertoire, what you do with the Cotton Bowl.
Well, one of the things when I came in, and again, I don't say this stuff to brag about me, but I'm the first full-time employee that's an African American in the history of this office. So, but this organization has a strong history of supporting people from all backgrounds. It's just one of those situations that I just happened to be the first. But when I came into this job, one of the things in that respect is I wanted to engage us more in a DEI initiative, and that's something that I took on hand as I came on board. But as I was doing that, I'm no DEI expert, and I knew that. I'm still not, but I wanted to open myself up to learning more about the things that are affecting the workplace and how you can do things in a better way to positively affect the workplace in that area. So one of the many things that came out of the pandemic, which we're still in, was opportunities like this. And University of South Florida was offering this free certificate that you can that you can do online. And I know hundreds of thousands of people, I think, jumped on it. I mean, I know it was a large group of folks, but I took the opportunity to be a part of that, to learn more about how to assess it, how to look at it, how to be a part of the conversation in the workplace, how to be a leader in the conversation, how to be a listener in the conversation, how to bring things to the table that, not only for people that look like you, for people that don't look like you or have different backgrounds. A lot of times when you talk about diversity, especially in the workplace, people look at it as a black and white thing. Well, we're not going to get to the place we want to get to diversity if only one side of people or one people of a particular background is talking about it. So we got to be able to talk to people of all backgrounds and come together within an office culture and be able to move things forward in a positive way. So that was something that I did, from an educational standpoint, and I learned a lot from it. And I've kept all the things in the workbooks and some of the reading materials that they left us. That was a part of that earning that certificate that I can go back and look into it all the time, because this is a space as that has grown even more so in the past really 2 or 3 years in college athletics, to the point now where every athletic department many athletic departments is hiring somebody to oversee DEI, or they have the designation that has come out of what the NCAA has passed now.
Well, I'll tell you, just from different experiences, I've had a chance to work at what is considered, the acronym PWI, and also work at HBCUs. And I like what you said about diversity. Diversity has to mirror the institution. And, HBCUs are also tasked with diversity initiatives as well, because you need to make sure that all those, particularly in your region or your area that you serve, have opportunities for academic opportunities past high school. Now, it's not that you're forcing somebody to try and do that, but at least give the effort and make sure that you expose those people in your areas that these opportunities are there. And I think that D&I is not something that's going to go away anytime soon, and we need to embrace it. And the more we embrace it, the quicker we'll get to that point where people can feel that there's fairness, not just see it, but feel it as well. One thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because I've seen this, when I started working in athletics, it was called sports information. Now you call it media relations or strategic communications, and you've been doing this for close to 25 years. Kind of walk through the evolution of what used to be sports information to now what we're seeing done by our media relations departments, not only in the collegiate level, but also in professional levels as well?
Well, when I first came in the profession, a lot of it was about being the person that took stats, being the person that put together media guides and things like that. And that is still a part of the profession. Our profession, I look at it right now, is that the way I've always tried to explain it, at least in most recent history, is that strategic communications is the overall umbrella of what we are right now as an overall thing. But within that, there are certain pillars. One of those pillars is sports information. And sports information, you still have to be, and I'll slash that with historian, you still have to be the information record keeper of an athletic department, whether that's through stats, through your media guides, through your records books, through keeping up with that information, whether that's in hard form, digital form on your website. You still have to do that. So that's one piece of it. Then you have what I call media relations. And media relations is there is still a need to create the relationship with the media. While the sports media have shrinked a little bit throughout, and you become a little bit of your own source of information within an athletic department, you still got to build a relationship with the media, whether that's locally, regionally, nationally, in whatever sport it is, and that's creating those relationships for them to write stories about your program, whether that's about successes on and off the field, whether it's about coaches, student athletes, administrators that's around your program. And then as a part of that is your operations, is your media operations, is what you do on game day when you have media coming in to attend your event. So that's the media relations side of it. And then you have your community relations, where you want to tell the stories not only about your student athletes in the community that they live in and that your school or your conferences in, or in the community in which they came from. So you want to create a good community relations as it relates to that. And then you kind of got your public relations that goes on with that. And that's, to me, that's working more with, your entities across campus, with university relations, with maybe some of the people within your city, within your region, within the country, talking about your program. And then you got your crisis communications, which is the unfortunate side that we all have to deal with when something goes wrong, and you have to deal with all the things that come on that, and who's going to communicate, based upon the level of the situation, whether it's a natural disaster or is an unfortunate incident involving a coach, student athlete, or administrator, and how you're going to coordinate that with your leadership of your athletic department in collaboration or in concert with folks on the other side of campus. So, to me, that's kind of the whole thing as it stands right now. And I think the evolution of our profession in the time that I've been in has been it's been vast. You've gone from just being a good writer could get you through, or just being good at numbers and stats could get you through. Now you got to be able to write. You got to be able to speak. You got to be able to be on camera. You got to be able to edit video. You got to be funny on social media. You got to be able to put together graphics, complicated graphics, simple graphics. You got to understand how to communicate to these student athletes who are more engaged and more willing to talk about things than maybe they were in the past. Coaches as well. But the one thing I wanted to make sure that I think we missed in the early stages, and they're trying to push, at least I am through COSIDA, anybody in sports information, name what title we have. We are, just like everybody else, college athletics administrators. Mm-hmm. We just have an area that is communications. And I think sometimes they would put the sports information person off to the side and wouldn't treat them like they were an administrator in the athletic department. Just because you do a certain thing, that's just like your compliance person. That's just like your athletic trainer. They're also administrators in the athletic department who have a particular skill set or a particular job that they're doing. And I think it's really important as we try to continue and we have made some strides, but still got a long way to go, moving our folks forward so that they're looked upon as leaders in the athletic department that do a certain thing, and they can move beyond just being the person that writes. They can administrate sports. They can administrate other aspects of the athletic department. They can be senior leaders within the staff. And I think that's really important. but also still have the fundamental skills that they need to have to do some of the baseline things that you have to do to be in the position. And that's keeping up with the information and the history and the goings on of your athletic programs on and off the fields of play.
Well, one thing that I do know, and you and I have talked about this, I understand the importance of that role, and I think one thing that you brought up that people don't realize, stats for the NCAA are key. They're very important. And if you don't record them properly, if you don't turn them in properly, or if you do not turn them in at all, there are some challenges that you can have as a department in a university because, having those stats are archival, but also, too, they're a good reference point. And I know that I would always try and make sure our staffs, if we had to go externally to bring people in to help, you want to make sure it's correct, and you want to make sure that you do those things that are appropriate as procedurally as you can, because you don't want to be that you don't want to be the person that's going to throw off somebody's record keeping, and also to make sure that you're clear with the NCAA. But what I'll do, we're getting ready to go ahead and close out this third quarter, but I'm going to bring up a good name that it's probably going to make you smile when I say this name, because I've known him since 1982. That's Mr. Langston Rogers. Langston was one of the first people I met at Ole Miss, and Langston has a great history with COSIDA and being probably one of the top sports information persons ever. So as we come back from this break and hear from our sponsors, Scotty and I will go into the fourth quarter, and we're going to try and close it out strong.
Something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the We Believe Global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at webelieve.global.
SGECOVIDsolutions.com is paving the way forward for a safer city government, delivering cutting-edge biosecurity and biosafety protocols developed internationally by top virologists and scientists using an all-natural cleaning solution, killing COVID-19 on contact like no other product on the international market. For more information, please call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at SGECOVIDsolutions.com. Let SGECOVIDsolutions.com provide innovative rapid facilities testing and world-class state-of-the-art biorisk safety protocols for all of your coronavirus needs. Call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at sgecovidsolutions.com.
Welcome back to the fourth quarter with my dear friend and fraternity brother and the GOAT. I call him a GOAT in media relations world, Mr. Scotty Rogers, Director of Communications for the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. We left our last segment talking about Langston Rogers. And before you share a little bit about Langston, I just kind of want to share that Langston means a lot to a number of people. And when I was at Alcorn, and it was aired, I think, on maybe ESPN, where Steve Mcneal was not in the College Football Hall of Fame. And the first thing I came to find out was that nobody really turned his name in. So I called Langston. Langston connected me and walked me through the whole process. And I think his support and his guidance made a big difference because within 2 years of submission, we were able to get Steve into the College Football Hall of Fame. So there are a number of stories that I can tell about Langston and how he helped me. I was a student athlete under him when he was sports information director at Ole Miss. I was a co-worker of his when we worked together at Ole Miss, and I consider him a dear friend. And I know he's made an impact on COSIDA. So let me step back and let me give you an opportunity to share a little bit about Langston.
Langston is someone, you're absolutely right. When I got at the SEC and really throughout my time in a number of different places that I've been in my career, I've got a chance to interact with Langston. One story I'll tell is that, a lot of people, tie Langston to Ole Miss, but he spent a number of years at Delta State before Ole Miss. And I believe he is probably the first individual in the country to do a media guide for women's basketball back when Delta State was doing so well, way back when, back in the AIAW days, before they became a part of the NCAA. So after I left the SEC, I was at the NCAA and I was helping run the women's basketball championship for Division I. And it was actually at a COSIDA convention. And I was sitting next to Langston at a panel. And, he was toward the end of his time where he was in his full-time capacity. And I started talking to him about coming to be a part of my media coordination team for the women's Final Four. And I mentioned it to him, and, he was touched because he's like, you know what? I've had all this time around all these sports I've worked with, football in particular. He said, but, in the fourth quarter of my career, so to speak, he basically said, I'd like to go back home. So I want to give a little bit to women's basketball and come back and started working the Final Fours. And he's done that for a number of years. I believe he's still doing it. He may not have worked, obviously, the last couple of years because of obvious reasons with the pandemic. But that was always a neat thing that I could say I was a part of with him, is that, I was able to bring him home in a sports kind of way because he wanted to get back to women's basketball because it meant so much to him, because it was such of a big piece of his early stages of his professional career when he was at Delta State.
Well, I'm going to make sure that he gets to see this. I'm going to forward him a copy of the show because I want him to still know the people still revere him and appreciate the contributions that he's made. Now, one thing I want to do, I want to kind of jump into the Cotton Bowl Classic and just, if you would, just share with people, when do you start preparing, when have y'all start preparing for the next Cotton Bowl Classic and what goes into it?
To get into that, a unique thing about my time here at the Cotton Bowl is that it was my first job that may turn out to help me get my last job, as I've said with this job, because I was at the SEC offices in my last years when I got an opportunity to come work and volunteer and be a part of the media operations team for the Cotton Bowl. 21 years later, I'm volunteer. I've worked 21 Cotton Bowls, and then an opportunity comes when Charlie Fisk, who's was the longtime vice president for communications for the bowl, decided to step back and move more into a part-time role as our historian. Created an opportunity for me to come on board and to I won't say to replace him, to take over the responsibilities that he has, because you don't replace a Hall of Famer like him. You just try to keep the shoes and move him forward, because you got to wear them a little bit differently than the way he wore them. But you take it forward with the spirit and the best way that you can. But when you talk about planning for a bowl game, the plans, it starts when the last one is. There's a lot of different things that go into the bowl game. And for us, we have so much going on beyond the bowl game. With our foundation, with the Cotton Bowl Foundation, we do some things in the community through our grants program, through relationships we create with food banks, and we've done some what they call mega mobile markets over the last couple of years, where we had these huge food distribution events, and then just being engaged with other things. We also in previous years and this upcoming year as well, the regular season games that are at AT&T Stadium, our Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic staff runs the operations for those games, from the overall game operations and the media operations. So there's some work and planning that goes on in that. But there's quite a bit that happens, when you get done, when you're planning for a game, whether it's when you start talking about the the look and feel, what you're going to do as far as how you're going to present the game that coming year, and how that's going to look across all the different places, whether that's your website, from your signage to your digital signage, those types of things. How you're going to roll out information to your season ticket holders. How you're going to start planning. We just came back a couple of weeks ago from meetings in Orlando with the college football playoff and the bowl season. Bowl season is the association for all 44 bowl games, where we came together and we talked in our particular areas and as an overall about, the bowl business and what's going on with it, and some of the challenges that others have. And we talked not only as the bowl business as a whole, but we also talked amongst the New Year's Six, the 6 bowl games that work closely with the CFP and host CFP semifinal games, and in many years either host and or help run the CFP National Championship, where it's going to be this upcoming year will be in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium. So we have a lot of different meetings. There's a lot of stakeholders in the city that you work with when it comes to running an event like this, from the folks at the stadium to vendors that you use, local, regional, national, to help you do. So there's a lot of conversations, a lot of meetings, a lot of forums in which we use things like Zoom and Teams that we can get together, and a lot of internal conversation, because we also talk to the teams that just played in our game. We talk to some of the teams that have been in our game in previous years, because as you know, the last couple of years has been so different with how the tempo of college athletics have worked, especially in the world of college football. So we've been trying to do the best we can to learn from their experiences on campus, how that's translated to their movements during the regular season, to their conference championship, so that we can do what we can in our planning to make sure that we're putting together the best possible experience for all the people that are coming in, whether it's from the teams and the university, whether that's the fans coming in, whether that's the fans that are local, the media that's coming in. We want to make sure we do the best that we possibly can to create a great experience for everybody, so that when they walk away from this bowl experience, because for some people, that's going to be the one college football postseason experience they get. And we want them to have that one memory last them a lifetime. So it's really important that we do everything that we can to do that, and so they can tell that story and they can laugh and smile and remember that time when we went to the Cotton Bowl and we did X, or we experienced Y. So I want to be able. That's what we do, and we're in the business of making memories. So it takes a little time to make those memories.
Well, I've had a chance to experience those memories twice, and I can say that I was working at the institution that had a chance to play the last Cotton Bowl in the Cotton Bowl Stadium, and the first Cotton Bowl in Jerry's Playhouse. And I tell people,
absolutely,
Cotton Bowl probably puts on one of the best shows, not only for the fans, but for the student athletes, alums. It's a great bowl game, and I hadn't seen many to compare to it. But one thing that you did talk about, and I always like people to realize that you just don't buy tickets for the game and go in that day. There's so much that goes into it, and I always like to have people that have worked behind the scenes to share those guts of what goes on, because from a small scale, hosting a game on campus, to hosting the Cotton Bowl, there's so many people that play key roles that have to be on point and in tune to make sure that they're doing their part. And I'm just glad that you kind of shared some of that, because the community engagement and community involvement, all those are key, and it happens at every level. But as we get ready to kind of close this quarter out, one thing that we've all had a chance to deal with, and I think the Cotton Bowl stepped up, was when the pandemic. Because I think the Cotton Bowl hosted the Cotton Bowl game, but also hosted a couple of other games in the stadium, in AT&T Stadium. If I'm correct on that, maybe share a little bit about that and kind of what had to be accomplished to make that successful.
Yeah, you're talking about last year, during hosting the Big 12 championship game, which is the day before selections, and we find out who's going to be in our bowl game, is when we found out that we were going to be hosting the Rose Bowl game, that they were going to move it from Pasadena to our stadium, and it was going to be 2 days after our game. So it was really a unique experience that we had to kind of, we're dealing with trying to close out running the Big 12 championship game, and we got to prepare for our game, but yet we've been told that we're going to be doing this other game. So that next morning we met as a staff at one of our hotels, and our boss, Rick Baker, just pulled us together and said, look, we got to change the plan because we got to do some things differently. And we did. We came up. We normally have two teams at two different hotels. We decided to put them at one hotel in the Hilton Anatole and put one on one side of the hotel and one on the other side of the hotel. We changed all of the branding plans that we had. We had to change that in a way to make it a little bit more generic because we needed to be welcoming to the Rose Bowl. We had to sit down and learn from our Rose Bowl friends what they wanted to bring to the table. And we wanted to show deference to them because we had to run our game the way we had to run our game, but the Rose Bowl game was their game. It was our job to be bowl friends and help them, but we wanted to run their game, not run our game again. So obviously we were able to use a lot of things that we did in our game, and they were obviously wanting to make sure that we kind of replicate what we did, but we wanted to make sure to do some of the same aspects. So we hosted our game with Florida and Oklahoma. Just to give you a perfect example, all 14 stayed in the same hotel. So when our game happened on the 30th, and Florida and Oklahoma are kicking off, they left that day from the hotel. Well, when our game was kicking off, Notre Dame was coming into the hotel because the hotel had been flipped that day, to bring that team in and get them ready. And Alabama came the next day, the day before the game. And just preparing for that and having to be in a bubble and getting tested every day and, making sure we do everything that we could to keep the teams away from each other and then let them follow their protocols. Because at that time we were really in the heart of the pandemic, and, safety was a number one thing. We reduced the number of fans that were at the game. And the fact that we were able to have that Big 12 championship, our game, and then the Rose Bowl game, and then, frankly, we're able to have our game this past year. It is really an amazing accomplishment without any major issues from the COVID standpoint, not only for the teams that were participating, but for the fans as well. So it was an amazing experience. It's something that I'll remember for a lifetime. And the fact that I can say that I worked the Rose Bowl game, which was a semifinal game that year, is a really unique thing, and it will definitely go down as one of the most unique experiences and memorable experiences I've had working in and around college athletics.
Well, I was looking at that from afar, but it was seamless, and it shows the preparation that you put into it, and as colleagues, and a lot of times in athletics. Even though we might go at it, Auburn and Alabama goes at it, but they're still colleagues there. They're people that work together to make sure the fans can have a great experience. And right now we're close to the end. We're probably we passed the 2-minute warning. But I want to give you maybe about 45 seconds just to share what some key nuggets for somebody that might want to get into sports information.
Well, if you want to get in this business, get your hands on it. Find an opportunity to get engaged with it, whether that's at your own campus, a campus near you. If there's no opportunities there, look around. You might be at a Division I school, but your opportunity may come at the Division III school around the corner, or vice versa. You gotta find opportunities to get engaged. And if you're gonna get engaged, be committed to it. If you're gonna say, hey, I'm gonna come help you out, be consistent with it. Be there, and in many cases, if you show the interest and you show the want to, the people will embrace that and give you that opportunity. They will give you that opportunity to learn that, and many are more than willing to teach and more than willing to show you how to do this job in this environment that we're in now, because it's definitely evolved, And I think, find those opportunities. It may be at the high school level. It may be at the youth level in some sort of different way. But at the collegiate level, there's many, many opportunities. If you just reach out and follow up and show a consistent want to, you can get engaged with this and really and turn out simply like I did. It can turn out to be not only something that you do, but it turns out to be a passion and a career.
Well, Scotty, I appreciate you taking time to be with us today, and I wish you well in what you do. And as we move forward, we look forward to having more engaging guests such as Scottie Rogers and others that we've had, and we just encourage you to stay tuned to the Sound the Horne Sports Show, and we'll see you next time. Welcome to Sound the Horne Sports Show. I'm so excited to host this groundbreaking program that will broaden the Jackson sports scene's awareness regionally and nationally. My goal is to highlight sports in Jackson, the state of Mississippi, and nationally by utilizing my 25 years of Division I athletic administration knowledge, and my guests will be experienced leaders in sports. The guest on the show will share a behind-the-scenes, unique, and informative glance of the world of sports. Please join me every Monday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on WeBelieveDigital.com.